Xin kính chào quý vị. Hôm nay chúng tôi đang có mặt tại tòa thị chính thành phố San Jose, tại văn phòng Council Chamber của tòa thị chính. Thì tại vì chiều hôm nay thì ông Tân Đại sứ Ted Osius của Hoa Kỳ, người vừa mới được bổ nhiệm thành đại sứ tại Hà Nội, hôm nay thì ông có một buổi gặp gỡ với cộng đồng Việt Nam. Thì chúng tôi có mặt ở đây và chúng tôi thấy có rất là nhiều người Việt Nam mình, đồng hương Việt Nam, nhiều vị lãnh tụ cộng đồng, giới truyền thông Việt ngữ, cũng như một số các nhà chính trị khác có mặt tại buổi gặp gỡ hôm nay. Thì thành phố San Jose là thành phố mà có đông người Việt tập trung nhất ở hải ngoại. Trong cái tuần weekend vừa rồi thì ông Ted Osius đã ghé thăm quận Cam 3 ngày, tại vì quận Cam là quận mà có đông dân Việt Nam nhất ở hải ngoại. Thì bây giờ là đến San Jose. Thì buổi gặp gỡ ngày hôm nay, ông Osius đã cho cộng đồng Việt Nam mình biết chính sách và chiến lược của chính quyền Obama đối với Việt Nam. Thì mới cách đây một tuần thôi thì bí thư Việt Cộng là ông Nguyễn Phú Trọng đã có cuộc gặp gỡ với Tổng thống Obama. Thì tại cuộc gặp gỡ này, Tổng thống Obama đã rất là rõ ràng và nhấn mạnh rằng nếu như mà Việt Nam muốn tham gia vào hiệp ước TPP thì Việt Nam phải có những cải thiện về nhân quyền và những cái cải thiện về điều kiện lao động, cũng như là và cải thiện mối quan hệ với chính quyền Hoa Kỳ trong vấn đề quân sự chẳng hạn. Thì trong cái buổi gặp gỡ ngày hôm nay, ông Tân Đại sứ cũng nói sơ qua cho cộng đồng Việt Nam mình thấy là những cái bước tiến của Việt Nam theo như quan sát của ông trong 20 năm qua. Theo như ông nói thì trong vòng 20 năm qua Việt Nam đã có rất là nhiều thay đổi, chẳng hạn như là điều kiện kinh tế, chẳng hạn như là cái số liệu mà ông đưa ra là cho đến nay thì ở Việt Nam cái mà ông thấy thay đổi nhiều nhất đó là Internet. Bây giờ thì giới trẻ vào Internet rất là nhiều, và chẳng hạn như là đến nay thì Việt Nam đã có hơn 30 triệu người dùng Internet, Facebook. Thì giới trẻ Việt Nam bây giờ họ có quyền nói lên cái suy nghĩ của mình tự do hơn. Một điểm mà ông Tân Đại sứ đưa ra cũng rất là thú vị, đó là theo ông nói là có đến 92% người Việt muốn Việt Nam làm bạn với Mỹ. Thì đây là một cái con số rất là thú vị, bởi vì ông nói trên thế giới thì chỉ có Việt Nam là đất nước mà có rất là nhiều người, 92% dân số Việt Nam muốn Việt Nam làm bạn với Mỹ. Ngoài ra thì ông cũng nói thêm về cái cải thiện về giáo dục. Nếu như cách đây 20 năm trước ở Hoa Kỳ chỉ có 1.300 du học sinh Việt Nam, thì đến nay con số đó đã lên là 17.000. Và tại Việt Nam thì đã có Đại học Fulbright của chính phủ Hoa Kỳ. Trong cái phần mà đặt câu hỏi và trả lời Q&A đó, thì chúng tôi thấy có rất là nhiều cánh tay đưa lên, rất là nhiều câu hỏi, và tất nhiên bao giờ cũng là câu hỏi về nhân quyền, những câu hỏi về chính quyền Việt Nam đàn áp những người bất đồng chính kiến, điều kiện làm việc, rồi mối quan hệ với Trung Cộng. Cũng có một cái câu hỏi rất là thú vị, đó là liệu Trung Cộng có lấn chiếm Việt Nam được hay không. Và câu hỏi thì thay đổi rất là nhiều, chẳng hạn cũng có những câu hỏi quan tâm về vấn đề giáo dục chẳng hạn. Trong cái câu hỏi mà tôi thấy có một cái câu hỏi về liệu có một cái câu hỏi là liệu chính phủ Mỹ có giúp đỡ để thay đổi cái chế độ chính trị ở Việt Nam hay không. Thì câu hỏi này ông đại sứ trả lời rất là thẳng thắn, đó là không. Chính quyền Hoa Kỳ không ủng hộ thay đổi chế độ, nhưng mà trong cái sự ảnh hưởng của họ dùng biện pháp ngoại giao thì họ sẽ dùng cái ảnh hưởng của mình để thay đổi, yêu cầu Việt Nam cải thiện về vấn đề nhân quyền, về điều kiện lao động, về những cái vấn đề mà đàn áp người bất đồng chính kiến. Sau đây thì chúng tôi sẽ gặp gỡ một số người đã tham dự cái buổi họp ngày hôm nay để hỏi xem thử là họ suy nghĩ gì, cái câu hỏi của họ, những cái điều mà họ mong chờ từ cái buổi họp hôm nay với ông Tân Đại sứ.
Giải thích 26 tôi sẽ nói về giọng Bắc. Tại vì khi tôi đã sang đến Việt Nam lần đầu tiên, tôi đã học với một bát nhưng đó là lý do tôi dùng bát. I'd like to start by explaining a little bit about what happened last week. As most of you know, President Obama received Nguyễn Phú Trọng, the General Secretary of the Communist Party, in the White House. I had the honor to participate in that meeting, and I'll tell you, I'm always proud to represent the President and the people of the United States in Vietnam every day. But that day, I felt especially proud. The President was very, very clear with Nguyễn Phú Trọng about our expectations in this relationship. He was very clear on the subject of human rights, because that is who we are. He explained how important it is that Vietnam respect religious freedom, give people the right to express themselves, stop imprisoning people for expressing themselves, and he was very, very clear on the rights of workers. He said, we would like to have Vietnam be part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but the only way is if you meet the same standards that are required of every member of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And that means respecting the rights of workers to organize, to bargain collectively, right to free association. The President was polite, very, very firm. There was no way the leadership of Vietnam could lack any clarity about what we expect in order for them to gain the benefits of this very, very important trade agreement. As Ash mentioned, this month marks the 20th anniversary of normalization of diplomatic relations. I wear this little 20 for that reason. I had the honor to serve under King Peterson, our first ambassador to Vietnam. And even before that, Charge d'Affaires, before we had an ambassador, Desai Anderson was also my boss. And I've seen a lot of changes in Vietnam over the last 20 years. For example, when I was there 20 years ago, we had an annual trade relationship that consisted of about $450 million a year in two-way trade. This year, or last year, 2014, it was $36 billion. We expect it will exceed $40 billion this year. Last week, when Nguyễn Phú Trọng was in Washington, we were able to sign two deals, one with Vietnam Airlines, one with Vietjet, to buy $13 billion worth of Boeing aircraft. This is a big change from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Vietnam didn't have money to buy that size of the deal. Didn't have the money to, wasn't prosperous enough to conclude a deal that size. So one of the things that's changed a lot is that Vietnam is a lot more prosperous than it was. Another thing that has changed very significantly since I was first there is that there's the internet. I went to Facebook this morning. There are 30 million Facebook users in Vietnam. 40 million Vietnamese have access to the internet. We have about 200,000 people who follow our various Facebook pages, and I read their comments every day. And one of the things that really strikes me is how young people in particular will say whatever they want. And the Facebook is not shut down, it's not censored. The young people are able to communicate very directly, and they communicate with me in an unfiltered way. I get to hear about the hopes and aspirations, particularly of young Vietnamese. Recently, an internal poll was conducted, and that poll showed that whether people live in the northern part of Vietnam or the south or Bien Trung, whether they are older or younger, 92% of Vietnamese want a closer relationship with the United States. 92%. I don't think we get that kind of ratings anywhere else in the world, maybe not even at home. But 92% would like to think that the United States is Vietnam's closest friend. And when they rate what countries they think are really important for Vietnam's future, the United States is way up here. Halfway down is Japan. Another halfway down is Russia. And China gets very low numbers. It's very clear what kind of a future young Vietnamese want. They don't want less freedom, they want more. They want a closer relationship with us because we represent the kind of society that they'd like to see theirs become more like. And Vietnam's leaders have noticed that. And so bringing Nguyễn Phú Trọng to Washington was a controversial thing to do. But he was the skeptic in chief. He was the one, the head of the faction in the Politburo that was most skeptical about the relationship with the United States. And he's number one in the Politburo. I think it was a very powerful experience for him just to come to the United States. He and with his delegation, that added up to 5 Politburo members have been to the United States this year. Before the end of the year, 7 or 8 will come to the United States. That's half the Politburo. We've reached the number of 8. We've had 3 cabinet level visits already to Vietnam this year, and we'll have more before the end of the year, possibly even a visit by President Obama. So it's a very dynamic time in the relationship at this 20-year mark. And to me, that means opportunity. There's one other thing I want to highlight about what's different from when I was first in Vietnam. 20 years ago, there were less than 1,000 Vietnamese students in the United States. Now there are 17,000. And a few days ago in New York, an investment license was granted by the Vietnamese to Fulbright University, Vietnam. The Fulbright Economic Teaching Program has been transforming the way modern economics is taught in Vietnam for the last 20 years, and it's built a very powerful record of accomplishments. A lot of provincial officials come to the Fulbright Economic Teaching Program, go back to their provinces, being able to look at the economy in a totally different way. And then they start competing with each other to better govern their provinces and attract more foreign direct investment. So that has changed the way economics is taught, and in some ways has changed the way public policy is taught. Fulbright University, Vietnam, which the U.S. Congress has already decided to invest $17.5 million in, I think will change the way higher education is conducted in Vietnam. Private sector has been ponying up. $40 million has been raised thus far. Fulbright University of Vietnam will be the first independent, American-style, not-for-profit university in Vietnam. And when I say independent, I mean really independent, not beholden to any ministry. The General Secretary of the Communist Party promised academic freedom for Fulbright University of Vietnam. The Prime Minister and the President have made the same promise. This doesn't mean it will go smoothly. It doesn't mean, and what I've been saying about human rights, I don't think that means there will be no reversals. I don't think that progress is steady or happening all in one direction. I don't think that at all. I've had people in my home who were beaten up by the police. I know there are still quite a number of prisoners of conscience. One prisoner of conscience is too many. The numbers have come down, but it's still too high. The challenges are great. I don't pretend for a moment that I don't understand the depth of those challenges. But what I'm telling you is we have an opportunity right now, at this pivotal moment in history, to engage in ways we've never had such an opportunity before. My very firm belief, and it's not shared by all members of Congress, it's not shared by all policymakers in this country, but my firm belief is that if we engage, we have a chance to influence the decisions that Vietnam makes. I know that Vietnam is in the middle of a process where it's deciding what kind of country it wants to be. And the young people of Vietnam in particular have made it clear they don't want it to be just like China. They would like it to be more like us. And we have a chance to weigh in, I think, make a difference in what decisions are made in Vietnam. And as long as I'm ambassador, we'll try deepen the partnership so that we can influence the kind of decisions that are made in Vietnam. So thank you. Cảm ơn quý vị và các bạn. Cảm ơn rất là nhiều. Tôi rất muốn trở lại đến những câu hỏi và một trên viết trên án các khách cũng được. Cảm ơn rất là nhiều.
And we have two people with microphones on each side, so let me start over here, and then we'll move around each side of it, and we'll get to it.
Hello, can you hear me okay? First of all, I would like to thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Quyền. I'm currently the CEO of Quyền Vision and also the CEO of a non-profit in San Jose. I've been a resident of San Jose since 1978, which is almost 30 years. And for your information, I was on the delegation, to Vietnam in March 1989 with Senator Torres to talk about political prisoners, underration, and OPP. That is when Vietnam was still in primitive situation. I understand that a lot of things have changed and developed. The economic development seems to be going in their way. However, in addition to all these good news, I still read in the news and heard from people who just came back to Vietnam that oppression is still going on. I still heard about news of people being thrown into jail or harassed because they spoke against the government and against the policy that the government is adhering right now. The adoration of Vietnamese community, being a person who's been here and active for almost 40 years, is to see the political landscape changes in Vietnam, not just economic. Okay, I would like to ask you, with the trade agreement, transatlantic here, and with the mission of Vietnam, in addition to the requirement for religious freedom and human rights freedom, is there any plan for political change? We are talking about multi-party. We don't want just one party to dominate and gather the country with a lot of corruption right now. No matter what people say, statistics show that corruption is right now at an alarming rate and high level, and it doesn't seem to be stopped. So, would you mind sharing with us your plan as ambassador to work with the Vietnamese community and the U.S. government with President Obama? How we can change the Vietnamese political landscape so that people in the country and people outside the country have a voice in the policy making and in the destiny and the future of the Vietnamese. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you both for your service in this community, and thank you for what you did starting back in '89 to help bring about normalization between our two countries. Because the only way we could even consider normalization was to look honestly at our past. And we had to start from a place of very little trust, and we had to address issues from the past before we could even start to think about the future. So thank you for that. You asked whether we have a plan for changing the regime in Vietnam, changing the form of government in Vietnam, and we do not. It is the policy of the United States of America that we respect different political systems. And that is hard for a lot of people to hear, but I want to be very honest with you. We do not have a plan for regime change. The plan is that if we can respect each other's political systems, then we believe there's a chance to press for continued, sustained progress when it comes to human rights, labor rights, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, within the confines of a system that many of us don't agree with. And so I'm being very honest with you. What I do want to tell you, though, is that some things have changed in that realm Vietnam was a rubber stamp. That is not the case anymore. The National Assembly today is made up of people who are calling the executive branch to account on what they do. They're actively engaged in changing laws to conform with the new 2013 Constitution. They're actively engaged in changing laws to conform with Vietnam's international commitments, including its international commitments on human rights. So there's a process underway of Vietnam becoming more of a nation that is ruled, that respects the rule of law than is ruled by law, if you know what I mean. So I think there are things that are happening in Vietnam. It does not mean wholesale change. I'm not going to predict the future, but I'm not out there pushing for democracy in Vietnam. I'm pushing for human rights, and I'm respecting the political system. It's the only chance that we have, I think, to influence the course that Vietnam takes.
Okay, kính chào đại sứ. My name is Truman. I'm a resident of San Jose. I hear on TV you say every time, everywhere you go out in Vietnam, in your pocket, you have the human rights card. That I really appreciate that. Today I come here with one thing, small thing, that to show communist regime actually violation religious freedom. But I think you never know it. My sister, who have been cooking in a Buddhist temple for nearly 40 years, she did not do anything else. Last year, she went to airport for Hong Kong. You know what happened? Her name on the no-fly list. Because she cooked for a Buddhist temple, but that temple not belong to, not controlled by communist government. This is a violation of religious freedom. Mr. Ambassador, today I don't ask for help from you, but in this case, when you come back to Vietnam, please take a look of this, and I will give you my sister contact information in Vietnam. Thank you.
I want to explain to anybody who doesn't know this reference that I carry every day, right here, a list of what we expect the Vietnamese to do in the area of human rights. Every member of my team is a human rights officer. We all have this. And the Vietnamese all know that we have this. They know that whether you're a commercial officer or a consul officer, you're also a human rights officer because it affects everything that we do. I'm the human rights officer in chief, and I always carry this card, and they know what we're expecting of them. There is no lack of clarity. On the topic of religious freedom, you're describing a situation of the Unified Buddhist Church in Vietnam, and it's a very difficult situation. Members of Congress, my Consul General, others have been able to call on the most venerable Thich Van Do, and he describes the situation that is not pretty. There are many difficulties in this area, and right now the National Assembly is debating a law on religion. And the first draft of the law on religion was pretty terrible. Now, the good news is it's not the final draft. They realize, both in the Vietnamese executive and in the National Assembly, they realize that it's not adequate. And so there's a process underway. There's been too short a period of official consultation, but there's unofficial consultation that continues. We have been invited to contribute our recommendations and our thoughts to the law on religion, and you bet we will. We have been invited to contribute our thoughts and our recommendations Civil Code, and the redrafting of the Criminal Code, and the redrafting of the Criminal Procedure Code. And we have been very, very clear. Respectful, and I make clear when I do it that we're not doing it to bring about regime change. It's the only chance I have for us to be listened to. But we're very clear that if they want to do what they said they would do and revise their laws in accordance with their Constitution and their international commitments, they need to take these recommendations into consideration. So I think right now we have an unprecedented opportunity and unprecedented access that allows us to influence the decisions that are made, the kinds of laws that are drafted. And this is terribly important because there was a pattern for a long time, and my predecessors all dealt with it, where prisoners of conscience would be released in California or Washington, D.C. They'd be taken out of the country, and then new prisoners would be put in prison right behind them.
Yep.
And we have made it absolutely clear that is not how you do business with the United States of America. That does not work for the United States of America. What we need, and what I've spelled out very clearly on this card, so that everyone will understand it, that every level of our mission and every level of the government, is we're looking for systemic change. We're looking for legal changes that respect, that are in sync with their international commitments on human rights, on religious freedom, and with their own constitution. Because right now their laws do not synchronize with their own constitution. So this is a process that won't be easy and it won't happen fast. And there will be people like your sister who will suffer during the course of them deciding what kind of laws they want to have. And the most venerable Taekwondo is still under house arrest. But I've been up to the Northwest Highlands with our Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. I've gone to the house churches. I meet with religious leaders in every community I visit. They know how much we're focusing on these issues. And right now, Vietnam wants some things from us. They want the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They want a closer security relationship because they feel threatened by China. And this is our moment. This is our moment to have an influence on the kind of decisions that are made. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashton and Cedar San Jose, for putting this event together. Thank you, representing Congressional District 17. My conduct semi-report to him, please. And Ambassador Osius, welcome to San Jose.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Huang. I am the community activist, a taxpayer for 40 years, and I have my own radio station. First, semi-regard to Clayton, and send my best wishes to your child.
Thank you. Thank you. We actually have now even a second child, a 4-month-old little girl.
Semi-regard to your children. I'm so glad, learning your background, that you've been working with the very first ambassador to Vietnam, Peterson.
Yes.
He started so many good things for this process, and then now you're taking the hand and continue the path that he started out with. I have one comment though, except you, Peterson, and yourself at Osius. The folks in between, from Raymond, from Michael Marine, from Michael Realak, and then David Shear. Sometimes I wonder, Mr. Ambassador, I'm not sure which one of them is U.S. Ambassador to Vietnam, or which one of them is U.S. Vietnamese Ambassador to the U.S. And that is my concern. Let me share with you my feeling. You said it's 20 years, and let me say it's 40 years more than enough, and 20 years is just enough. You can't go on softening yourself with evil regime and expect them to change. I agree with you wholeheartedly that the people, the Vietnamese community will give the push. The people back home will get a push. We rely on your partnership, and we ask that you stop softening yourself and start being more aggressive, more assertive. Because goodness dealing with evil, you can't keep on going what you've been doing and expect to do. And then finally, you stated human rights. you stayed at TPP. Follow the lesson you learned from your boss, Ambassador Peterson. Take that as a good tool, it's a very sharp tool, and then pushing for change at the very low level, very foundational level. And with that, next time when we get back to this forum, we expect you to show concrete results, things that can be measured. I hate to listen to somebody things are doing okay, things are making progress. Mr. Ambassador, making progress and things doing okay, not gonna cut it. And then finally, we expect that you will come back and then we have more discussion. Thank you for being frank with us, thank you for being fair with us, and thank you for being Chief of Human Rights Officer. Thank you.
Pete Peterson. Pete Peterson is my hero.
It's mine.
For those of you who don't know, he spent 7 years in Follow prison. He and John McCain and Everett Alvarez was in Follow prison for almost 10 years. And those are three of the people who have made the greatest efforts to bring about normalization of relations with Vietnam. People who suffered greatly, but who believed that it was in the interests of both countries to try to see if we could move forward. Pete was in Hanoi in January, and then he was back again in July when Bill Clinton visited for our 20th anniversary celebration. And in January, Pete said something that really stuck in my head. He said, in the U.S.-Vietnam relationship, nothing is impossible. And that's a big statement. It's very forward-looking, a very forward-looking statement. I think you have to be honest about the past if you can be forward-looking. He's been very honest about the past. He's never pulled punches. I've been with him in meeting after meeting where he did not pull punches. He's very, very honest. But he also believes that there are opportunities, and he believes that it's our duty, especially to the coming generations, to look at those opportunities and grab them. And that if we grab those opportunities, then we have a chance to influence even the parts of the relationship that are most deeply troubled. And that's been my attempt to follow in his footsteps, is to remember that nothing is impossible, to be absolutely honest, and to try to grab hold of opportunities, to be opportunistic, really. And let me say one thing about that Ash mentioned about the role of Congress in this process. One of the things that Congress does is it keeps us honest. In some ways. There are in the area of human rights, definitely. And the fact that Congressman Honda, Congresswoman Sanchez, I was with Ed Royce a couple of days ago, Alan Lowenthal, Dana Rohrabacher, Zoe Lofgren, they all, I hear from all of them, and the President hears from all of them about the importance that they place on human rights. And that is very helpful to me as the Chief Human Rights Officer in the embassy. It helps me so much to be able to go in and say, look at these members of Congress, they're going to vote on TPP. Do you want to throw a few more bloggers into prison, or would you like to boost your GDP by 30%? Do you want to throw more prisoners of conscience into jail, or would you like a partnership with us that will help you deal with China? Your call. But I can tell you that Congress will not support you if you don't make progress on human rights. I had a letter from a few days ago to the President from 7 senators, all of whom voted for Trade Promotion Authority. But all of whom said they will not vote for TPP unless Vietnam makes progress on human rights. I will show, I've already made sure that my staff, I'm here, but I made sure that my staff took that in so the top leaders in Vietnam would see that letter. They know that they're on the knife's edge when it comes to votes for TPP. And TPP is an existential question for them. It's terribly important for them. So the fact that Congress is so active on this issue, so focused on this issue, is extremely helpful for the Human Rights Officer in Chief. Thank you.
Nói hoặc là chiến sĩ quyền ở bên Việt Nam, mỗi ngày họ làm cái chuyện đó. Tôi là người Công giáo, cho nên là tôi đeo tượng Đức Mẹ 24/24 mỗi ngày, và tôi đã có quốc tịch 30 năm. Khi tôi vô cửa thì trên cổ tôi đeo cái sợi dây này, nhưng mà tôi không biết tại sao, tại vì đây là linh hồn của cái việc tị nạn chúng tôi được trả tiểu bang, và nhiều thành phố, nhiều tiểu bang trên nước Mỹ và cả City San Jose công nhận. Cho nên là đây là linh hồn của chúng tôi, cho nên lúc nào tôi đi đâu tôi cũng đeo hết. Mà tôi đã khoảng có 10.000 chiếc như thế này. Hơn nữa tôi cũng từng đeo cờ biểu tượng như thế này tặng cho ông may, ông đã 5 chiếc này cho ông. Tôi không hiểu tại sao khi tôi vô cái cửa thì nhân viên của ông Ascara đã tịch thu và để người kia trong tôi mang theo. Như vậy là đây cũng là điều vi phạm nhân quyền, có phải không?
Có lẽ là cho thầy giải thích. Tôi sẽ giải thích tôi rất là quan trọng yêu thương này, rất là quan trọng. Và thầy không có vấn đề gì hết với ba để kho biểu tượng này. Không có vấn đề gì hết. Vấn đề cho thôi. And let me explain this in English so that everyone understands. For me, if I'm accredited to the government of Vietnam, I'm your representative to the current government of Vietnam. If I am photographed with that flag behind me or that flag at a podium, I won't be able to continue doing my job. I can't be your advocate in Vietnam anymore because they'll send me home. So you have a choice. You can always show that symbol proudly. And any member of Congress can show that symbol proudly. But as a diplomat accredited to that government, I cannot. It's as simple as that. So I have absolute respect for that symbol, for that flag. But I can't be photographed with it and then go back to Hanoi and continue to advocate. I simply can't. And so I ask that that flag not be displayed behind me, but I don't have any problem with you displaying. No problem at all. Those are.
Ask or there is Jakarta for the Vietnamese community, so we have a chance to meet with our ambassador. My name is Yang Chunjia. I'm CEO of Vietnamese Media. I have two short questions. One for myself, because beside my job is the publisher of Vietnamese newspaper, I still do the charity. And our charity always back to Vietnam to help people build a school and help poor people and poor children. And sometimes you know that you over there almost a year, you know that the communist movement, they give us a lot of trouble. We don't want to work with the communist movement. We want to go directly to the victim to help them. And in case you got trouble, can we learn to knock your door to ask for help? That's the first question.
Yes. Can I answer that one before you do the second one?
Yeah.
Okay, because sometimes I don't forget. I don't want to forget. First of all, I wanted to note that there is a growing civil society in Vietnam. It's still small. It's still kind of for both Americans and Vietnamese of the younger generation. So I hope that we can find ways to nurture that reconciliation, reduce the suspicion. What you are trying to do is a beautiful thing and should be supported and not thwarted. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you for your answer. I feel sorry for my people in Vietnam because you know that Japan got tsunami, we can contribute to help.
Yes.
Philippines got typhoon, we can help. And just last month, Nepal got earthquake, we help. But we cannot help our Vietnamese communities. That's the reason. So the second question comes from my reader, not from mine. The rumors are circulating in the American Vietnamese community here that China will take over the Vietnam and attack.
Now they have told, except for Ho Chi Minh and General Chen Sao, every Vietnamese hero was 1979. That war lasted a long time. It lasted until 1991, and it cost the lives of many Chinese and many Vietnamese. It was devastating, and it meant that there could be no prosperity because they were on a war footing right until 1991. That's really recent. I would say that the Chinese are really foolhardy if they were to go head-to-head with the Vietnamese. What they're doing now is something very different. They're taking unilateral actions in Vietnam, in the South China Sea. They're bullying and intimidating smaller countries in the South China Sea. The United States doesn't have a specific position on the territorial claims of countries in the South China Sea, but we have a very strong interest in how those claims are settled. We believe they should be settled through diplomacy and in accordance with international law. And our strategy involves supporting diplomacy, which brings all the ASEAN countries together so that you don't have one country at a time going to Beijing like in the Middle Kingdom era, like a vassal state, but all the countries are together. When they face China united. That's at the core of our diplomatic strategy. Our legal strategy depends on the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea and persuading countries, making it very difficult for countries that don't observe that international law. And then there's a third part of our strategy, which is to build the capacity of the nations in the region. And we're doing that with Vietnam. There's some restrictions on that, on our ability to do that. But the Vietnamese are pretty tough, and they're very strategic when they think about what they need to do to defend their own territory. We also have a very strong interest. For 239 years, the United States has stood for freedom of navigation all over the world. We're really the only superpower that stood for freedom of navigation, not just for us, but for everyone. Even when Great Britain ruled the waves, they didn't do that. We have been flying for a long time, planes through South China Sea and sailing our ships through the South China Sea. We did it yesterday, we did it again today, we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it the day after. We've made it very clear, we will not be intimidated by anybody. We will sail, fly through international airspace and international waters. We do not recognize any claims to exclusive airspace when it comes to the South China Sea. If the Chinese are so foolish as to declare that it's their airspace, we will not recognize that. We will not observe that. So we are pretty much in sync with Vietnam, and we're working closely together in this area.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. Hello, everyone. My name is Osius. I've been in San Jose for 21 years. I retired from retail profession and apply for specifically position for fighting trafficking with my co-workers here. My question today is not about human rights, not about changing regime, not about religious. I don't ask about the war, but I think what they ask and what I answer most I want to concentrate on the possibility of the war maybe greater than China on the Spratly Islands. Now, in 1974, when China attacked the Pacific Island and the U.S. didn't move anything, so we lost the Pacific Island to China. Now, suppose if the China attacked the Spratly Islands, will you guys stand safe, or will you have some difference of trying to do this, or even Vietnam government to fight against China? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say one thing about Intel. Intel has made more than $2 billion investment in Vietnam and is producing more than half of its computer chips in Vietnam. today. There's its biggest production facility in the whole world is just outside of Saigon. And Intel has decided that its investments, not just extractive, they're teaching young people engineering. So they partnered with us and with some other companies in a program that, and with Arizona State University, a program that raises the engineering capability of young Vietnamese. And then they'll be able to do anything. It's a really great investment in the community. So I have great admiration for what Intel is doing. So you asked about a hypothetical question about this practice. You're right. When China invaded the Paracels in 1974, there was no action by the United States. But remember what was happening in 1974. Now it's a different situation. And in October, Secretary Kerry announced a partial lift of the lethal weapons ban against Vietnam, just for maritime purposes. So Vietnam is looking to us for help so that it will know what's happening. First of all, know exactly what's happening in this practice and be helpful. So that means they need to have radar that can keep track of what's happening. They need to have ships that are big enough that they can get out from the coast, and also big enough that if a ship from whatever country rams them, they won't sink. And they also need planes that can go far enough out to be able to keep an eye on what's happening, and that the information can be integrated among all three. We're able to help in this area, and we are helping in this area. And Secretary of Defense Ash Carter went to the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore and talked about what was happening in Bien Dong and how much the United States, and made very, very clear what the United States position was on South China Sea. At the same time, Secretary Kerry went to Beijing and made sure that they knew exactly where we were. And Secretary Carter then went and met with Minister of Defense Tang right after he went to the Shangri-La Dialogue. And I went with him to Haiphong, where he visited the naval headquarters and the Coast Guard headquarters. And then we met with General Tang and with the leadership of Vietnam to talk about what we can do together to keep the South China Sea open to all traffic and to try to lower the tensions in that area. So it's an ongoing effort to try to prevent the kind of conflict that happened in the Paracels, make sure that does not happen in this practice. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Dash.
Bên cạnh tôi bây giờ là bác sĩ Vượng. Thì xin chào bác sĩ ạ.
Vâng, chào cô.
Dạ, xin bác sĩ cho biết là chiều hôm nay thì bác sĩ cũng có mặt ở đây tại cái buổi gặp gỡ với ông Tân Đại sứ mới được bổ nhiệm, sẽ sắp sửa tới Hà Nội. Thì bác sĩ có thể cho biết là khi bác sĩ tới đây thì bác sĩ mong chờ gì từ cái cuộc gặp gỡ với ông Tân Đại sứ ạ?
Thực sự ra thì ông Ted Osius thì ông đã làm đại sứ tại Việt Nam 1 năm rồi. Và ông trở về cách đây mấy bữa thì ông ở dưới Nam Cali. Và bữa nay ông lên trên phía Bắc này và muốn gặp các đồng hương người Việt tại miền Bắc Cali, nói đúng ra là những người Mỹ gốc Việt. Thì vì quan tâm đến cái tình hình đất nước và cái người đại diện cho cái người Mỹ, trong đó kể cả người Mỹ gốc Việt, cho nên chúng tôi đến đây để xem trong cái tình hình 1 năm qua ông đã làm gì được ở cho cái người Mỹ đại diện cho người Mỹ tại Việt Nam. Cái kế tiếp là tôi có nghe nói là ông ấy xuống tới miền Nam, và chính hồi nãy ông cũng xác nhận là những cái điều mà ông trả lời hoặc là những cái công việc mà ông ấy những cái mà ông đã làm đó thì không được cái cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt ở dưới Nam Cali thích lắm. Thí dụ như là ông ấy nói rằng ông không có thể đứng ở dưới cái lá cờ vàng 3 sọc đỏ, cho nên rằng là ông sẽ sợ mất job. Bởi thế cho nên ngày hôm nay chúng tôi muốn đến để nhìn xem ông như thế nào và coi những cái câu trả lời của ông như thế nào. Thì ông ấy cũng có giải thích rằng là ông rất tôn trọng cái lá cờ vàng 3 sọc đỏ, nhưng mà cái công việc của ông sẽ trở về Hà Nội, cho nên là ông ấy không muốn đứng như vậy. Nhưng mà thực sự thì ông đã đứng dưới cái cờ đỏ sao vàng nhiều lần, có những cái gì thì cái chuyện này đấy là cái của ông ấy, nhưng mà tôi không có đồng ý với cái sự giải thích của ông ấy. Và bởi vậy cho nên tôi đi về, tôi thấy ông có giải thích một vài cái, nhưng mà tôi không có thấy rằng là những cái câu giải thích của ông không đủ để mà những người Mỹ gốc Việt mà thực sự thí dụ như là khi mà vô đây đó, có một cô tức là cô Đỗ Thị Minh Ngọc, cô đã từng tặng cho ông Mike Honda, mà ông Mike Honda làm máy đèn host ở đây, mời ông tới thì cô có đeo một cái sợi cờ Mỹ và cờ vàng 3 sọc đỏ, nhưng mà vô đây thì bị nhân viên ở đây không cho mang vô, thì cô có đứng lên cô hỏi và nhân viên đã làm sai. Đó là những cái mà tôi thấy rằng là ông để cho cô hỏi có quyền không, thì cô có quyền, cô được đeo và cô đã làm cái điều đó. Đó là cái điều tôi muốn nói chuyện ngày bữa nay. Tôi cũng rất lấy làm thấy rằng là ông ấy có cái lẽ nhiên một người đại sứ không có nghĩa là tất cả. Ông ấy có thể ông đại diện cho người Mỹ, trong đó có người Mỹ gốc Việt, nhưng mà ông phải theo cái chính sách ngoại giao. Và cái chính sách ngoại giao như thế nào đó thì chúng ta nghĩ là trong đó chúng ta phải chờ đến tương lai. Mà đặc biệt ngày bữa nay thì tôi cũng rất là phục ông một cái là khi mà nói đến có một câu hỏi nói rằng là liệu người tụi Trung Cộng có tấn công, có chiếm Việt Nam không, thì ông ấy nói rằng là ông ấy biết lịch sử Việt Nam, cái chuyện mà những cái người dân Việt Nam rất là tough, tức là rất là khó chứ không phải dễ. Thì những là bằng chứng là có những Trần Hưng Đạo, rồi những ông vua Lý Thái Tổ, thì ông kể là những người anh hùng mà đầy rẫy trên các đường đó, tức là ông biết về lịch sử Việt Nam. Như vậy thì mình thấy rõ ràng là cái chính sách của Hoa Kỳ trong cái thời gian sắp tới nó cũng sẽ thể hiện qua cái việc làm của ông đại sứ này. Thì trong đó có vấn đề cho du học sinh đến đây nhiều hơn, rồi cho đến vấn đề rằng là sẽ có những cái tranh đấu về nhân quyền. Đặc biệt là ông có khoe là ông đi đâu ông tự xưng ông là chiến sĩ của nhân quyền. Thì đó là ngày bữa nay tôi đến đây, và tôi nghĩ rằng dù bỏ thì giờ bỏ, hôm nay tôi đóng cửa phòng mạch nhưng mà tôi cũng đã thỏa mãn được một số các cái câu hỏi. Cảm ơn.
Cảm ơn bác sĩ. Thì quay trở về cái chuyện mà hồi nãy là cái lá cờ vàng, thì ông có giải thích là tại vì ông là dân ngoại giao, cho nên là nếu như mà bây giờ ông đứng ở lá cờ vàng, khi ông quay về Hà Nội thì người ta sẽ send ông home. Thì đó là cái lời giải thích của ông. Thì hồi nãy bác sĩ có nói là bác sĩ không có được thỏa mãn lắm về cái câu trả lời như vậy, thì bác sĩ có thể nói rõ hơn được không ạ?
Thì tôi có giải thích rồi, tại vì ông ở bên Việt Nam, ông cũng khi vào ngoại giao thì ông cũng có đứng dưới những lá cờ đỏ sao vàng. Thì ông về đây người ta đâu có phản đối gì ông đâu. Ông đang là ngoại giao, nó vượt qua những cái đó. Vì cái lá cờ vàng 3 sọc đỏ đã được tiểu bang California công nhận trên toàn tiểu bang. Và chính ngay ông thị trưởng của San Jose và ngay San Jose Milpitas đều đã công nhận cái lá cờ đó. Thì cái chuyện mà ông về đây, người ta ví dụ như là nếu mà người ta có những cuộc biểu tình, ông đến, ông đứng, ông ủng hộ cái đó đằng này. Một cái chuyện mà bình thường thôi, đâu có cái gì đâu. Giống như là ở dưới nhà bà Janet Nguyễn, bà mời ông tới, thì trong nhà bà có cái lá cờ đó, nhưng mà ông né ra, không đứng. Người ta nói ông, thì cái chuyện đó là chuyện riêng của ông có thể giải thích. Nhưng mà tôi thấy cái lối giải thích của ông ấy, nó không có thể người khác bằng lòng, tôi không bằng lòng cái chuyện đó.
Dạ, cảm ơn bác sĩ rất là nhiều.